2. Hello, everyone. Oh, there it is. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to have you join us today. If you already heard me say hello, it's because there was a slight delay from standby to going live on air. But I am super excited to have Jeff Henderson here today. I just have to tell you, we were just reminiscing about how long it has been since we've known each other. We were introduced by my very dear friend, Dr. Mark Santa, a really long time ago. And we have an interesting story about how we met, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I just want to let y'all know that a little about him. He is has a very unique service for chiropractors and business owners, and has a really incredible way. We know that there are professional people who can knock out an interview, and then you have this phantom person that you do not know where they came from that shows up on the first day of work, and you're like, that is not who I hired. And he's really found a way to kind of figure out who those people really are, to make sure that you're hiring the most incredible people to do the most incredible work for you and your patients. He's a frequent speaker for various groups. Has contributed articles in the past to chiropractic economics, holds an MBA from Duke University, and he lives in Raleigh, North Carolina with his wife, and he has 4 children. So he's only slightly crazier than me with my 3. So, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can impart your wisdom on this incredible group we have before us.
Thanks, Christy, for that introduction. I appreciate that. And welcome, everybody, to the webinar. Hello, and happy Tax Day. That's something I thought I'd throw out there. We got some really good numbers who registered for this webinar, so I want to thank you for being here. This obviously is a topic that has gotten some attention out there. I'm really pleased that you're here, because there's some really, really great information I'm going to be sharing with you. And I'm assuming that those on the webinar are mostly, obviously, owners or managers because of the title. 3 tools every manager needs, and how to have a great team and help them consistently perform for you. So I'm just to let you know, a little caveat here, I've got so much material to cover, I'm not even sure if I can get through it all. But I'm going to go for it, but we're going to be moving pretty quickly here. And so let me start out by asking some questions that I think find out if this sort of makes sense for you, okay? See, I'm hearing some classical music. Is that just to soothe my soul, or? Not sure if everybody can hear me. Christy, are you there? Okay, so I guess people can hear me. I see one note saying that everybody can hear me, but I've got some classical music in the background. I'm not sure what.
I can hear it too.
Oh, okay. Hey, Christy, is there a way to stop that?
Second.
Sure.
I'm going to try. Hold on 1 second, everybody. Okay, Jeff?
Yes, I'm here, Christy. Can you hear me?
Is the music gone?
It's gone for now. Should I just
Let's
jump in?
just say I'm not. Yeah, go right ahead.
All right, let's do that. And if the music starts again, we'll maybe try another time or something or figure it out. All right, sorry everybody. That was interesting. So anyway, so a couple questions to consider. First, just before making a hiring decision, do you feel kind of like you're rolling the dice and not sure what to expect? Most people can answer yes to that. Is your hiring process revealing all that you'd like to know about your candidates? We'll talk more about that. Are some staff that you have unmotivated, disengaged, or underperforming? Are you frustrated having to deal with employee drama and not sure how to effectively take control or resolve the issue? Maybe you don't have the skills or you feel like you don't have the right tools to do that. Do you lack the tools to manage others, instill accountability, or give effective feedback? All while improving morale and communication. If you felt like you could relate to a lot of those questions, here's sort of the challenge with most of us who own or operate or manage a business. The first is that, many of us don't have a reliable hiring system that helps reveal your candidate's true strengths and hidden risks so that you know who to hire and why to hire that person. So they're able to hide things in interviews. That's a big challenge, obviously, that we all have. The other problem is that you don't maybe know their natural thinking style, their hidden attitudes and biases, and that affects their performance. And so if you don't know those things, it's tough for you to know how to help improve your employees' performances. You obviously have your own natural thinking style, your own biases that impact the way you see things, your focus, and your decisions and actions. Furthermore, for many of us, we feel like, gosh, I just don't have the time to lead my team. I'm putting out fires, right? So I don't have the time to actually work on the team dynamics and the team performance and deal with issues like I wish I had. And you maybe are not sure how, or you just don't have the right tools for helping your employees and yourself perform at a higher level. So that's kind of what we're getting at today. And these are the challenges that every business owner, every manager faces, at least some of them they're facing. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to set this up in a way, I like to call these the 3 Ps. The first most important goal you have as a manager, as an owner of the business, is to protect the business. So we are going to spend a little bit of time on hiring just briefly because it's so critical to having a great team. You got to have a great team before you can help them perform, right? Number 2, you want to know and better understand your employees' potential. Are they in the right seat on the bus? Do you know how to help them access their talents, right? And number 3 is to drive consistent performance. Those are the 3 Ps: protect, potential, and performance. All right, so let's quickly just lay a quick foundation here. And we're going to talk a little psychology. This will be fun. We'll put our thinking caps on. Here's a great quote by a guy named Alan Fine, who's a sports psychologist. And he said, work is logical and performance is psychological. Okay? So actual tasks are logical, but it's the people side of it is obviously psychological. And so in order for us to have a great team, to know how to have our staff working together well, to know how to help them perform, we got to have a little background in psychology. This will be very brief, but it'll help. The analogy, or the metaphor rather, that I go to all the time is golf. My brother grew up playing competitive golf and played against Tiger Woods for years as a junior golfer. And so this is a metaphor that we like to use, but this is Patrick Reed, who just won the Masters Championship. And this quote here, in golf, the speed and direction of the club head is the key to success, right? The faster and the more accurate your club head moves, the more success you will have. That's the way it works in golf as a sports metaphor. So how does that apply to you? Well, the reason I bring this up is because it's the same in life and in work. except we change the variables a little bit. Performance ultimately is based on the speed and the accuracy of your decisions. So instead of a club head, we have decisions. Secondly, decisions are actually determined by how people think. And to get more specific, it's how they see things, how they see the world, and how they filter information. You're going to see how this applies in a minute when you use these tools that are going to help you. Now, everyone, all of us, are born with natural biases that automatically filter and focus everything that we see and hear, okay? So we can't perceive everything happening around us. We have to filter information based on what we feel is important. Does that make sense? So that means that we're also focusing on certain things and not focusing on other things. That's called our natural bias. And these biases are what drive our performance. So every single employee or a member of the staff that you have has their own particular way of seeing and filtering information, and it creates these biases which makes us who we are, and you have them as a manager, as an owner as well, and it makes you what you are, and it's what drives your performance. It's what determines where you get stuck, why you get stuck, or why you do very well. Okay, I'm going to pick up the phone here. Does this help, Brenda? Brenda said she's losing the vocal part. All right, maybe somebody can answer that real quickly. All right, so the quick note here is that everyone is born with natural biases, and that affects our performance, okay? Now, let's look at this in a series of steps, and this will relate to the tools that we're going to use. The first step that we all go through is that we perceive information, right? Let's say you're training a new employee, and you're giving them a lot of data. Thank you. I appreciate that. Dr. Chris here has told me you guys can hear me. So the first thing we all do as human beings is we perceive information. And so when we're, the next step, I got to remind myself to hurry. The next step is that we analyze that information. We're thinking about what we're learning and what we're being asked to do and how that fits into everything else that we know, right? And we're making judgments there. And the third step is that we make decisions based on the information. So we perceive, we analyze, and then we decide. And then, and only then, do we take action. So if you think about it, we don't take action or we don't perform at anything we're doing unless we have first perceived, analyzed, and made a decision. Does that make sense? I hope so. And then based on our actions, we get results. So this is a way to look at it through a series of steps, okay? Now, what does that have to do with having a great team and helping them perform really well? I'm so glad you asked. All right, so this is the key. Knowing how others think and make decisions, in other words, knowing their biases, their natural biases, is the key to knowing why they perform the way that they do. And it's the key also as a manager or as an owner to helping improve the performance of the members of your team. It is the key. You've got to understand and get in their world and understand how they see the world and what their natural bias. And that doesn't mean you've got to be a psychologist. No, it doesn't. I'll show you how simple this is. All right, so that's the psychology. Now, let's talk about the 3 Ps. The first thing we're going to talk about is protecting the team, the business, all right? Let's quickly review, I could spend an hour on this, but the 7 biggest hiring mistakes, just to make sure that we understand the importance of these. Hiring too quickly. Don't do it. Do all you can to slow down the process. If you're hiring too quickly, obviously then you're going to have gaps in your judgment. You're going to feel pressure to make certain decisions and snap judgments, and you're going to end up possibly making mistakes. Number 2, hiring on gut feelings. So there's a lot of people I talk to throughout the chiropractic world who feel like they've got this amazing intuitive gift, right? I call it guessing. You really want to have a process, and we'll talk about that. A recommendation. Be careful with recommendations. Always check references, look at recommendations, but no shortcuts. What I mean by that is you want to make sure you take even a highly recommended person from a great friend of yours
through the same process you would any other employee, any other job candidate, rather. Okay? Number 4, references from other employers. Check them, but take them with a grain of salt. People don't want to criticize other, previous employees, and they're careful of being sued. So just remember that you got to have multiple steps here. Just because you check references and they all sound great, it doesn't mean this person's going to necessarily perform for you. Number 5, a big mistake, is an impressive. That's supposed to say resume, an impressive resume. Be careful not to give too much weight. A lot of studies have been done, and over 50% of resumes are falsified. They falsify, what they were paid in their last job, how long they worked there, all kinds of things. Number 6, ace the interview. When people are acing the interview, we feel like it's a slam dunk, and we're impressed. In other words, we're sold, and you don't ever want to be sold by a job candidate. Then we seem to make decisions based on that, almost entirely sometimes. Boy, they just interviewed so well that that's the one I want. And you got to be careful, because some people, because I profile people for a living, they are good on their feet. They're very clever, very adroit, and they know what questions you're going to ask. They know how to perform on the interview, and then, as Christy outlined, you get somebody else on Monday morning. Number 7, mistake is not testing. Now, there's lots of different tests that you can perform, obviously. You can test grammar. You can test typing. There's free typing tests. There's math. There's a lot of different tests. I'm going to show you one here in a second that's going to make a huge difference in your hiring. Number 8, if I could add number 8, which I didn't do here, is never delegate hiring down the line to somebody else. Always, as an owner, be involved in the process of hiring. All right? So that's a quick view of the 7 biggest hiring mistakes that I sometimes do an entire webinar on. 2 quick questions. One is, do you have a proven, reliable hiring system with all the right steps that you and your team follow each time you hire someone? This is critical. Number 2, will it help you know who the best candidates are? And does it help you identify specific risks in the candidate? You're going to find here in a second that's super critical. It's what you don't know about a job candidate that's really going to jump up and bite you, right? Not what you do know, because what you do know, you can make decisions around. All right, so the key thing here to protect your business in a hiring sense, you got to have a system. And system, you've seen this acronym probably before: save yourself time, energy, and money. Okay. Now that system should answer 3 major questions. Okay. By the way, if you're taking notes, I think that's great, but feel free to keep notes. But if you want to, I'm going to give you some information at the end of the webinar, a way to get all this information. I'm going to give it to you, so don't stress out. Somebody said here, calling character references seems a little bit of a waste of time. No one puts down people who aren't going to say something good about them. It's so true. What are some good questions to ask to glean useful info? Man, I wish I had time for that, but I'll tell you a real quick tip. One thing that I recommend that doctors do is try. A lot of times you'll have to leave a message with the person that was given as a reference. They don't pick up automatically. You'll leave a message with them. You say, if this person was a stellar employee that you could highly recommend, please call me back. That's one thing I do. Another thing you can do is ask to speak to somebody that worked more directly with that person, or even a couple people. But yeah, your point's well taken, Karen. People don't want to rip on past employees. All right, so 3 questions your system should answer. 1, can they do the job? Obviously. Number 2, will they do the job? This is a completely different question, and it's harder to get the answer to that. But we'll show you a tool that will help you do that. Will they do the job? Will they do it for you in your environment, right? Totally different question. Number 3, what issues are they going to bring into your environment, your team, your company? Okay, what are the risks? All right, 3 critical hiring steps you don't want to forget. Number 1, identify exactly who you're looking for, or I should say what you're looking for. I recommend you build a profile on every role in the office, okay? And you don't just identify maybe the hard skills, but even the soft things like attitudes and motivators and things like that also matter. Number 2, learn how to conduct powerful interviews. We don't have time for that today, but interviews are critical in how you do that. I'll give you a tip. Throw them off their feet. They are totally prepared for what questions you're going to ask. So what you want to do is take them out of the box a little bit and ask them questions that will throw them off, okay? Be unconventional in your interviews. That's the one quick tip I have time for. Number 3, you've got to test, okay? So let me turn my own page here so I can see my notes, the things I don't want to forget to say. The testing is important because you want to know your risks, okay? Well, risks for what? So here's the first tool. It's called the Risk Performance Profile. I used to call it the Hiring MRI. Somebody went and trademarked it before I did. I dragged my feet. But this is a really cool tool because I learned about it 20 years ago, used it in my business, and here's why it's important. This is not a personality or behavioral assessment, okay? This is a tool that literally measures the steps that I mentioned earlier: perceive, analyze, and decide. It measures how people think and make decisions. It literally measures their biases. And it's also going to give you their core strengths and development areas, or what I like to call risks. So the report that comes is very brief, but it tells you what their core strengths are. It tells you all about the specific risks, their prioritized development areas, and the level of risk. So you're going to actually know, you're told what the risks are ahead of time. So it helps you make a great hiring decision, but it also, let's say you do hire them, it also is going to reveal their attitudes that are kind of hidden, right? They hide their true attitudes, whether they're attentive to others, confidence, problem-solving abilities. It tells you their self-image, their motivators, what motivates them. You might be trying to bonus people to motivate them, and they're actually not even motivated by money. They're motivated by something like recognition or getting things done perfectly because they're such perfectionists, right? It's going to tell you their stressors and a lot more stuff. Okay? Now, what's cool about this is, and Christy took this years ago. That's how we were introduced, and she was pretty blown away by it, but it's objective. There are no questions on this profile. This was developed back in 1973 and nominated for a Nobel Prize. And my brother learned about it when he was interviewing for a job. And they had him take this assessment, and he thought, well, I've taken assessments before. And when he came back for the second round of interviews, they knew him like they had raised him. It just blew his mind. And he thought, man, I don't know what this thing is, but I got to learn about this. And that was 20 years ago for us, actually about 24 now. So it's an objective tool that is taken online. It takes 15 minutes, and I'll tell you maybe a little bit more about it later, but this is the first tool that's going to make a big difference in having the right people on the bus and mitigating the hiring risk part of this whole team development thing, which is critical because you've got to protect your team. So anyway, you can learn more about that later. I call it the Risk Performance Profile. Okay. So hiring with more confidence, it's going to help you follow. So what you do is you follow all the steps in your hiring system. You do the homework, in other words. Number 2 is you pick who you think you would hire. And then number 3, you would have them complete this particular assessment, which is a 15-minute online exercise. And then you're going to have the good, the bad, and the ugly. You're going to know what those risks are, what to expect, and so you can protect your business, okay? So it's a critical tool that I used for 20 years in business, and now, of course, is one of the things that I do is help other business owners with their hiring. So let's go to the next thing. I had a questions thing here, but we're going to go to the end for that. All right, hope I'm not moving too fast. Let's talk about the second and third pieces of this, having a great team and helping them perform. And this is really fun because we got 2 more tools I'm going to mention that are cool. Potential and performance, okay?
To send your message, press 1. For delivery options, press 2.
I'm hearing
To play your message, press 3.
Okay.
To re-record,
hopefully you guys
press
can
4.
hear me.
To continue recording, press 5.
2 more quick
to cancel,
questions.
Press star.
Can anybody hear me right now? I feel like I'm being recorded for
to send your message, press 1. For
Can somebody
delivery
else
options,
hear
press
it
2. To play your message, press 3. To re-record, press 4.
Hold on.
To continue
Sure.
recording, press 5. To cancel, press star.
Think we got it?
To
Christy?
send your message, press 1. For delivery
1 second, I'll
options,
try what I
press
did last
2.
time.
All right, so 2 more questions here. Do you know if your employees are on the right seat in the bus? Okay, this is talking about their potential and really understanding where they should be and whether to promote and what's a good role for them. Do you know how to get better and more consistent performance out of them? So let's talk about that. Covey said it is easy to get their hands and backs, but how do you get their hearts and their minds? Right? It's a great question from a great man who actually was a friend of our family's. We miss him dearly. What a great person. So, is your team focused and engaged? This is really, really cool information here. This is a book called First Break All the Rules. And if you're a manager or an owner, if you haven't read this book, I really recommend you do so. The information in this book comes from 2 massive research studies that were 25 years long. They interviewed and researched over 1 million employees, 80,000 managers, and it was called the Gallop survey. And here's one of the major things they learned that I want to mention here. They said that based on all the research, at least 70% of employees are what they call actively disengaged. Can any of you guys relate to that at all? Probably. So that's kind of akin to having their hands in their back, but not their hearts and their minds, right? They're not engaged. So how do we help them get engaged? Well, one of the other things that we found out through all this research is this: the number 1 factor in employee satisfaction and productivity, and we could even add the word engagement, is their direct boss. Okay? So the most influencing factor in whether an employee is satisfied or productive is how things are going with their immediate direct report, their direct boss. Okay? Now, also from this information came some interesting things. They were able to take the research and develop what they call the measuring stick for performance and profitability. And it came down to 11 or 12 things. Do I know what is expected? Remember, I'll send this information to you, so don't feel stressed to get it all down. Do I have the materials or resources that I need? Do I have the opportunity to do what I do best? Have I received recognition recently? Does my manager care about me? Do they encourage my development? Do my opinions seem to count? Is anybody listening? And is this role and is this job in this environment part of my mission and purpose? Is it important? Are my coworkers pulling alongside of me in the same direction? Are they committed? Do I have a best friend at work? Has anybody, sat down with me to talk about my progress in the last 6 months? And then finally, do I have opportunities at work to learn and to grow? Okay, so this is really, really important because there's some more information here, and that is that these 7 here that I've bolded here are those that are most influenced by the direct manager. So if you're a manager on the webinar here, and this is really critical information for you, and you might want to do a screenshot if you know how, but if not, I can send this to you. But as a direct manager, you have direct influence over items 1, 2, and 3, 5, and 7. Okay, so that's a good number, and these are prioritized, right? So they're very important ones. And these particular items are also the most strongly correlated to employee retention. Okay, so now you know basically what you really need to be, supplying in terms of resources and support for your employees. Now, let's look at the psychology side of it. Your team has the potential to perform better. I don't care who they are and what they're doing. The human performance is there are no limits on it, right? And their potential, is blocked by what we call interference. Well, what kind of interference are we talking about? What's blocking people's performance? Well, there's a couple things. There's internal interference, and there's external. Internal are the things you can't really see as easily, and you don't have as much control over. Fears, doubts, judgment, expectations, stress and pressure, and biases, okay? Incidentally, those are things that the tool that I mentioned before, the risk performance profile, actually measures those things. Pretty cool. The external interference that blocks performance on the job or in life are things like bad systems. Well, we have control over that, right? We can improve systems. Politics and drama. I know you guys don't experience any of that at the office. Disorganization, weak management, changes, right? Those are forms of external external interference that block performance, okay? Well, let's dive into this a little bit better, a little bit more. So if there's this interference, internal and external interference going on, then what's the answer? What do we do? Well, interference, this is based on all the best sports psychology out there. Interference, a lack of performance, is reduced by what? Focusing attention. Okay, so the two tools I'm about to share with you are a very simple way for you to help your employees focus their attention on key variables and key activities. All right? So here's the summary of what we just mentioned the last few slides. You need to know what blocks performance. You need to understand what drives performance for that individual. That the profile will help you do that. And then you need a process and a model that helps reduce interference and focuses attention. Everybody with me? So here are the tools and some information that will help you reduce interference and focus attention with your employees and help them perform better. All right. A high-performance environment is one in which they have clear goals, steps, and a process. Number two, their skill level matches the challenge that they have, right? If their skills are much greater than the challenge, they're bored. If the skills are not up to meeting the challenge, then they're stressed out like crazy, okay? So skills need to match the challenge. Number three, this is critical. Immediate feedback. I'm going to show you how to do this. Immediate feedback is critical, particularly for millennials, by the way. So you want to jot that down. They, for whatever reason, they need more timely, immediate feedback. They thrive on it. Number four is obviously all of this in a trusted, well-respected, effective communication environment. Okay, so trust, respect, and effective communication. And so that's what I want to share with you now in this next tool. All right, feedback. So feedback is what I like to call the breakfast of champions, okay? Now, when you guys were young and you're growing up, do you remember how your parents would basically lecture you, when you got in trouble? And they would sit there, and it was kind of like the old Peanuts teacher that was kind of wah, 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 and that's what it sort of seemed like. I just love that because that's what I felt like, right? So, what we do is we do this right here. I love this picture. And why do we block this out, right? Because when we're being lectured to, and we're told things that we already know, first of all, and number two, we sort of resent the judgment, right? We feel judged. Even if we, as parents or coaches or managers, are trying to provide feedback and fix things or even be constructive in our criticism, people tend to sort of block that out, and we may not have a better way of doing this, right, so that it's received well, even though our intentions are pure, right? So let's talk about that. How do we give feedback in a timely way that will be effective, right? So here's how we do this. This is called the feedback loop. Now, this is going to seem very, very simple to you and straightforward, but it is powerful. I'm telling you, I've used this with my children as well. Not only employees, but my children. I won't say my wife because that would sound like I'm being manipulative, but this is a great tool. And it's basically three major questions. What's working? Where are you getting stuck? And what might you do differently next time? If you can remember those three questions, then you've got this. And one principle, it's that picture in that glass sitting next to those words, and that is you really are trying to empty the cup, their cup, and hear them out before giving them a little bit of feedback. This is a very, very important thing. In fact, Stephen Covey, I think it was Habit 5, said, seek first to understand before being understood. Well, that's kind of what he was getting at. You've got to empty their cup. So here's the model for this. I want to show you this. This is called the feedback loop, and it is quite literally a mini coaching session. So when you don't have a 45-minute, time block to sit down with a person and sort of provide feedback and coaching or deal with a problem they came to you with, okay, and you're just blowing and going, that's where this is really, really a great tool. I want to read this to you here in the top left corner. Accurate, timely feedback is a key to any performance improvement effort. The following steps outline a method for providing feedback, and this specific language will help reduce interference that derails our well-intentioned feedback sessions. So here's how you provide more effective feedback to people and help them get refocused. That's how they remove interference, remember. Step 1, ask permission. I have some feedback I think would be useful for you. It involves blah, 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 some specific non-judgmental issue. Is now a good time, all right? And step 2 is empty their cup, okay? So you might say, so that I don't tell you things you already know as it pertains to this particular issue. You and Nancy working together on the billing, something like that. So I don't waste your time telling you something you already know. Margaret, would you please just tell me first, what do you feel is working for you? What's working as it relates to this situation? And hear them out. Where are you getting stuck? Okay. Number 3, what might you do differently next time? Okay. And then, and only then, will you add suggestions or observations in that conversation. I hope that makes sense. That's called a mini coaching session. Now, there's a couple critical things. When they describe what worked, you want to celebrate their success, okay? You want to esteem them when you can. When they talk about where they get stuck, this is really important. You want to avoid, this is where people go down the drain or the rabbit hole and they get stuck and they just whine and they go on and they just stay there. They stay in that stuck place and continue to rehash and go over things, and you do not want them to get stuck there. So avoid failure discussions and also avoid any judgmental correction. Just listen, okay? And don't judge at all. Just hear them out and then move them to the next thing, which is what might you do differently next time, and how are we going to fix this? And then is where you identify possible actions, okay? Now, simply endorse what you agree with, and if they understand and have a good way forward, then support them. If they don't understand or have a good way forward, then is the time to offer the observations, okay? You can say something like, thank you, do you mind if I offer up some observations, okay? So remember, effective feedback is immediate. It's as immediate as it can be on the job, okay? But it's as soon as possible. It's specific, and it's non-judgmental, okay? Focus on the results and the behavior that you desire. This is what we're after, rather than the problems or mistakes. I hope that's helpful, but this is so profound when you get good at stopping what you're doing, providing constructive feedback in this way with respect and trust, and you first empty their cup and say, tell me what's kind of working for you. Okay, now where are you getting stuck? And then moving through possible options moving forward. It's a huge thing for people. They feel heard, understood, and they feel comfortable moving forward, and they feel like, gosh, I feel listened to. Okay? So that's called the feedback loop. If you want a copy of that, I'm going to show you how to get it. It's pretty simple. Let's move to tool number 3. I'm just looking at the time to see how we're doing. Hopefully we have some time for some questions. So tool number 3 is called the G.R.O.W model. Now, the feedback model is really kind of like a miniature G.R.O.W model. It's when you don't have a lot of time and you just need to have a quick conversation and provide feedback, get people focused, and remove the interference or the problem. The G.R.O.W model is something that's a little bit more drawn out. So it's when you have more time to sit down with an employee and deal with a problem, or to help that employee work through goals or clarify their mission or whatever it is you're trying to do. But the main thing is to help them get unstuck. It can be used in team meetings, and I'm going to show you how to use it here in a second, but it can be used, it's very powerful in team meetings where you're either tackling challenges, on-the-job challenges, or major plans. You're maybe, introducing new opportunities. Maybe you're going into a multidiscipline practice or something like that. You got big plans and you want to work through that as a group or as a team. Strategies, things like that. This is a model that facilitates the thinking and the discussion to get you very clear and remove interference. Okay. You can actually also use the G.R.O.W model on yourself. There's many times when I sit down and I will take this tool and I will go through this process and answer these questions, and I cannot tell you the clarity that comes out of it. So let me take a second to explain that real quickly. What people do is, and we all do it, is we get stuck, okay? And we have all this self-talk going on, and think about your employees. This is where they are, okay? They get stuck, and another way to say that is they get in their own way, okay? And they don't know, they either can't see it or they don't know how to fix it, and they don't know how to work through a problem and get out of their own way because they have their own biases and they see it their own way, right? The G.R.O.W model, and in a smaller way, the feedback model, is really a model or a process for helping facilitate the thinking of another person so that they get unstuck and get clear, okay? That's really the process. And what's cool about it is that you don't have to have all the answers. If you're a coach, a manager, an owner who's working with employees, a parent, it doesn't matter. When you have this tool, you don't have to be the end-all, be-all and have all the answers. You're going to actually help facilitate the other person's thinking or the team's thinking so that you draw, the word educate means to draw out, okay? You draw out the solutions that are inside those people, and they're sort of solving their own problems and getting unstuck. It's a very powerful tool. So let's look at it a little bit closer. It's called the G.R.O.W model because that's an acronym. G stands for goal, R for reality, O for options, and W for way forward. Okay, that's the acronym: goal, reality, options, and way forward. So what this model does, it is simply 4 little sections here that you want to walk through and ask very specific questions, and they're all here. So the first section is goal, okay? Think about sitting down with an employee of yours or even a team, your whole team, and saying, here's something we want to kind of work through, all right? You take the G.R.O.W model out and you say, okay, goal. What do we want to accomplish today in this conversation? What is our goal, okay? And that goal should be a SMART goal, right? Specific, meaningful, action-based, realistic, time-phased. You guys have heard those acronyms. The goal should be specific, and it should be clearly outlined, okay? And then the question is, what are the consequences if we don't get through this goal, right? The second section is reality. Now, this is a really important section here because this is the section where you basically take a little time to describe what's happening. Now, if you're talking to another employee and managing them around a problem, and you've got the time to go through the G.R.O.W model, this is where you would say, briefly, Joanne, what's going on? Please describe what's happening relative to this particular goal or topic, right? And then the next question is, what have you tried so far? The next question, tell me about the results. And then the next question, what's getting in the way? What are the obstacles? Okay? What is your sense of the obstacles? And then you check in again to say, is the goal realistic? Now, this section in reality is people get stuck here, so you got to be careful to move them along. And another great question down here, by the way, in this section is what else? You can always ask, what else, what else, what else? What you're really doing in this section is you're allowing that person to get stuff off their chest, to vent, to describe what's going on, to think, okay? And you're just facilitating the thinking is all you have to do. You don't have to have all the answers. Now, you might have some suggestions and some answers, but it's not time to get there yet. So that's the reality section. And then options is a section that's very important because now we're moving forward. Okay, if some of these questions are just so good. If you were the other person, what would you have to see or hear in order to get your attention? Or if you were watching this conversation, what would you recommend? You can't believe, I've asked that question of people when I'm coaching them, and the wisdom that comes out of the very person that has a problem or is just stuck is incredible. They got the answers. They're there. And anyway, they solicit some things, and then you can say at that point, would you like some suggestions from me? Do you see how you've emptied their cup before you've gotten to the point of offering your own suggestions? It's just really powerful. Do any of these ideas interest you enough to move forward? If you were to do these things, how might you go about it? Now you're taking them forward to say, okay, we've discussed options. Which of these sounds good, and how might you go about it? Now, way forward is kind of a cool section because it says, does this option interest you enough to take action? Now, this is a little bit of accountability coming into play. How will you go about it? What might get in the way? See, now we're anticipating problems or consequences or stumbling blocks, and we're anticipating them and developing ways around them. Because the next question is, how might you overcome that? Okay? What and when is the next step? That's getting them to commit to the next step. Okay? So this is the G.R.O.W model. It's been extremely powerful for me as a business owner, as an employer, as an individual. I will sometimes, if I have something I'm working on, as I said, I will sit down and I will walk myself and ask myself these questions and just get so much out of it. And I come out of this experience very clear and understanding what my options are, what might get in the way, what I'm going to do about it, and having some accountability. And so I hope that has helped you to understand basically as a manager and an employer that you don't have to have all the most brilliant skills and answers for everything. With these tools, you can become a great coach and mentor and manager and friend to people. And you can use this on a team as a whole for issues, or you can use it personally yourself, or you can use it one-on-one with an individual. Okay, very powerful tool. So as a recap, let's see what I have here. Can't remember my own slides. You want to protect the business. That's avoiding the 7 mistakes. It's having a job profile for each role in your office. You know, most people don't do that, but the ones that do, it's really helped them because then they know what they're looking for. The risk performance profile is a very powerful tool to help you not make a hiring mistake and to know what you've really got. Potential, you know, are they on the right seat on the bus? What are their true strengths and weaknesses, and what are their biases? And then items 1 through 5 of the Gallop research poll is critical for you as a manager. And then under performance, of course, we've got lead versus manage. We've got focusing attention, removing interference, right? And then we've got 2 other great tools. We've got the feedback model, which is a very quick, short mini coaching model. And then we've got the G.R.O.W model. And so even if you're not a skilled manager, we've got 3 very powerful tools that I think, you know, when you understand how to use them and you implement them in your practice and in your life, just has made a profound difference for me. So I always share them with doctors when I'm coaching and managing them, or not managing them, sorry, helping them with consulting is the word I was looking for. If you are interested in any of this information, like if you want the feedback model or the G.R.O.W model, just email me, Jeff at dchiringpro.com. the model's pretty self-explanatory. When you get it, you just walk through it. You go, okay, I got this. I mean, I can easily use this, and this is good. I can send you the feedback model, the G.R.O.W model. If you have any questions about the risk performance profile, I'll just quickly mention I do a risk-free trial. I think people, before they start using it to hire, I think they ought to, do the trial, because they need to experience it and see what it reveals. Here's kind of the way that works. You get a login and a password to the online system. You would have one of your current team members complete the risk performance profile. Christy kind of cheated. She took it herself, and I got the feeling halfway through our little debrief that maybe that was her and she took it herself. But so you'd have an employee take it, because you know that employee really well already, right? So that's how you can experience the profile and know that, oh my gosh, this thing is very accurate. I know this person. I've worked with them for years. And step 3 is you get a 5-page analysis, and I personally get on the phone and I tell you all about that person and what's going on and all about them. So you and I have a quick discussion and we talk about it, and you can experience it. The risk-free trial is only $97. It's the report and time. It's very valuable because you're getting a lot of information about that employee. But anyway, if you have an interest in that, that's the one way to check it out without investing a lot of money. And of course, you can do that by going to my website, dchiringpro.com, or you can email me directly. Either way is fine. But hopefully that has, been interesting for you. These tools are really, really super for managers, coaches, employers, owners of businesses, and they surely help me in my life as well as a business owner. Christy, why don't we go to some questions to see if anybody's got anything they want to ask? I know I was flying through that, trying to make up for lost time.
I don't see any questions yet, Jeff.
Okay. No worries.
Oh, here's one. Does the risk performance profile cost $97 per person going forward?
No, that's a trial for the report. So depending on what job candidate you are measuring or we're testing, there's different costs for the report. So let me just spend a little time on that. What you get is a 5-page analysis that breaks down all the things I mentioned, their prioritized core strengths, their risks, the levels of the risks, the specific things you're going to experience on the job with them, and then attitudes and all kinds of motivators and stressors. It's going to list out what's really going on inside that person. And it's also going to give you interview questions or interview guide that's going to tell you generally how you might want to proceed with a second interview for that person. That's how the report is broken down. There's over 200 different reports, but there's 3 main reports that people always order. And then you also get me on the phone with you for as long as it takes to describe what's happening. I actually get on the phone with you and walk through the report. So I don't just send you the report. I help you make a good decision. Christy, this is what I did with you, right? I mean, you took it. We got on the phone. I spent 25 minutes with you on the phone walking you through the report, answering questions, describing that person, all that kind of stuff. The customer service report is about $225. That includes the report and the debrief. If you're talking about hiring a CEO or manager, there's other reports that cost a little bit more, but there's always a debrief with me on the phone with each of those reports. I hope that answers the questions.
Let me just tell y'all how very accurate this report is. So, and there's a good reason why you need to go through the debrief with Jeff, because I did take it myself, because I was like, I've taken every kind of tests like this, and I know how to manipulate data to make myself sound fantastic. That sounds really bad when I say that, but I did. I'd taken them all, and I couldn't quite figure this one out. Like, I couldn't understand, like, the questions that it asked. You don't really know what.
That's because there are no questions.
There's no questions, right? So what you're doing is, and I was like, I don't understand how this is going to tell me anything about myself. Well, then I got the report, and then I was kind of mad because I'm like, I am nothing like this. And then I get on the phone with Jeff, and he's talking about like the pros and cons, and I'm like, wait a minute, I am just like this. But what was even funnier is that I gave it to Dr. Foxworth afterward, and I was like, okay, let me just tell you what I did. So he took it home and he read it, and he was like, man, I wish I would have done this like 6 months ago because we would have had a way better understanding of how each other work.
Didn't you take it to your mother? Didn't you ask your mom? Or
I
something
did.
like
I
that?
asked my mom about it too. Well, I took it to my mom before you and I did the debrief because I was like, I am nothing like this. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is you to a T.
And you said,
I was very much,
I don't think I like that very much.
I didn't. I was very much offended by
you had a great you had a good profile. But you had a good profile, but it's always gonna identify risks. It's a risk profile. So anybody that takes that profile is gonna have 3 or 4 things in there that it's gonna identify and pull out and say, this is something you're gonna run into. And so that's just the nature of it.
It is, and it's really funny because I think one of the things that it was talking about, I had a very strong personality, and it was talking about the pros and cons to hiring somebody with that personality. I'm like, that's not me, obviously, because most of our audience has been on this webinar series with me for years. Yeah, that was me. It is me.
Well, thanks for taking it. That was fun. So anyway, I hope that was helpful for everybody. But the GROW model and the feedback model, you really want a copy of that because it'll really make a big difference if you use it. Some people get it and they don't use it, but it's a powerful way to manage and coach others and get people to perform consistently in a way that is respectful, and they'll appreciate it as an employee. The way things are handled. So,
I agree.
Hope that was helpful.
All right. Well, I encourage you, if you have any additional questions, to reach out to Jeff at dchiringpro.com. Take advantage of this risk-free trial. I am telling you, seeing is believing. It's very accurate. I really encourage y'all to take advantage of this opportunity. To see what it's really about. I can tell you about it all day, but it is not the same as experiencing that for yourself, especially if you have it done on one of your employees that you know really, really well, who's been there for a while, or maybe somebody who's been statistically great and something has just changed. I mean, it's really eye-opening. I know that it was really beneficial for Dr. Foxworth and I. So just a reminder to everyone out there, next week we have Dr. Mario Fusionary who's going to be here talking about the cash practice. Is it fact or fiction? And then the following week, ancillary staff, are they worth it? Patient advocates, public relations, CAs, and scribes, should you have these positions filled in your practice. So make sure you go online at ChiroHealthUSA.com/webinars and get registered. We have all of our webinars posted into June, going into June, ladies and gentlemen. So get in there, register early because some of these are going to fill up fast. I want to thank you, Jeff, for being here today. There is a reason why I bring him back every single year, because hiring can make or break a clinic if you bring the wrong people in. This is so important. This is not an area where you need to not allocate enough time or resources, because hiring the wrong person will cost you so much more than taking the time and investing into hiring the right one. So look forward to having him back. I try to get him on here at least once, if not twice a year, to talk about it again in the fall. So he'll be back soon. Make sure you go back, watch the webinar. If you were trying to take notes and just absorb everything he has to say, it is golden. All right, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day and a fabulous week, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Christy. Bye-bye.